glass smashed, alarms screamed, and the night turned into a bright flash of red and blue. The city jewelry store had been quiet a moment before. Then, in a single heartbeat, everything changed. Men in dark clothes ran through the front doors, masks on their faces, voices sharp and quick. One of them held a black bag that looked too full for the light. A loudspeaker above the counter blared the emergency alarm. The owner pressed a panic button, and the alley outside filled with police sirens that sounded like a flock of angry birds. Inside, the people who worked there ducked behind counters. A security guard tried to step forward, but one of the robbers shoved him with a hand that did not want to hurt but wanted to hurry. The robbers moved fast, but not like practice. They moved like they had been rehearsing 1,000 times in their heads. They smashed the display cases with heavy hammers. They popped open the boxes and shoved glittering things into velvet bags. Rings and necklaces flashed like stars dropped on a black rug. Then something went wrong. A light that should never have been on flicked. A door slammed open not because someone pushed it but because a chain had been switched. A metal grate fell and trapped one of the robbers' feet. A display case would not open the way it was supposed to. People screamed, soft, frightened sounds, and the robbers froze like animals that hear thunder. From outside, the police were faster than anyone expected. A squad car skidded to a stop. Officers poured out and pointed their flashlights through the windows. One officer shouted, "Hold it! Don't move!" One of the robbers turned and ran toward the back door. He ducked into a narrow hallway, clutching a heavy bag. Behind him a shot rang out, a single sharp sound that made everyone duck. The robber didn't fall, he kept running. But when he reached the street, a patrol car blocked the road. Sirens and shouts filled the night. The robber tried to jump over the hood, but the bag clipped the windshield, scattering loose things across the glass. The patrol officer caught sight of a face beneath a mask and grabbed for it. A struggle started, quick and messy. Another robber vaulted over the counter and slammed a display case lid down. He grabbed one last handful of glittering spoils and ran for the back door. He dove into a waiting van with the engine already roaring. The van peeled away with a roar and a cloud of dust. The whole thing looked like a plan that had been perfect, until it was not. Soon the news cameras were there. Reporters called it one of America's biggest jewel robberies. People watched the footage at home and blinked in shock. They saw masks, hammers, the van, flashes of jewelry glittering in the dark. They saw one man run and get caught. They saw another vanish. But that night the story did not end with glitter and sirens. It slid into a new, darker part, something that would change the lives of many men and keep others behind bars for years. That thing was the prison aftermath. A day later, the police had found most of the stolen jewelry. They tracked the van to a safe house 2 towns over. The man who had fallen on the patrol car, his name was Eddie Ramos, had a long record. He turned out to be only a small hand in a bigger glove. The police arrested 3 people that week. They found keys, maps, and notes. They found a list of names with the word "cut" beside several. One piece led to another like stepping stones across a dark stream. But one thing kept bothering the detectives. Even though they had captured some of the people and gathered most of the pearls and diamonds, the head of the job was missing. Whoever planned the heist and paid for it was not in jail. The police found a name left on a napkin in a garbage can behind a diner. Marcus Hale. Marcus was not a headline man. He kept his hands clean enough on the streets. He had a suit and drove a car that did not look like a thief's car. Yet he had what the detectives needed, a reason and the money to hire others to take the risk. Detective Anna Price sat at her desk late into the night, staring at photographs spread across the table. She had a map with pins and string connecting houses and cars and people. She rubbed her eyes and sipped cold coffee. She thought about the victims, the store owners whose lives felt cracked open by the noise and fear of that night. She thought about the men arrested and the one who had run free. She could see how the plan had been smart like chess but not perfect. In the jail cells, the men who had been captured whispered among themselves. Eddie, the one who had been caught on the car, talked to his lawyer and tried to look brave. He said nothing about the plan, saying nothing at all. People like him sometimes thought silence was protection. But silence can make you into a stone that sinks in water. One of the arrested men, who called himself Dan, slept a lot. He closed his eyes and dreamed of a bar and a radio playing a song. He felt guilty about the way the store owner looked at him when police hauled him away. He kept thinking about a small child who had been in the store that night, eyes wide as coins on the counter. Dan never wanted to scare children, and he could not stop thinking about it. News followed the case like a shadow. The story grew each day. More details, more names. People argued on the internet. Some said the police had done great work. Others said the rich never got punished because they were smart. The store owners were on TV, holding up pictures of what they had lost. They said it was not the money they wanted back so much as the feeling of safety. Detective Price and her team worked through a web of phone calls and bank transfers. They searched for the big spender, the man who had started it all. The trail led to places where people did not look twice at the delivery truck or the late-night driver. It ran through laundromats and parking lot cameras, through small bills and secret messages. The detectives pieced together a shaky story. Someone had bought silence and paid handsomely to play a role in the dangerous night. That someone liked to keep a low profile. While the police hunted for Marcus Hale, the men in the van learned to be quiet. They laughed in whispers and fought in low voices. In the background of all this, a different kind of law followed its track, the law inside the jail. Some prisoners wanted the stolen gems. They loved things that shone. They whispered, "Who kept the cut? And who took the risk?" They wanted part of the pie even if they did not help bake it. Then a twist came that nobody expected. One of the small men who had been arrested, a quiet man with a scar on his hand named Joe, decided to talk. Maybe he was tired of the cold cement. Maybe he wanted a deal. Maybe the nights had turned long and thin. Whatever the reason, he told the detectives that Marcus Hale had not only planned the heist but had set it up so that it would look like a smaller gang's work. Marcus wanted the heat to fall on others so he could buy back his reputation later. Joe gave a name of a warehouse where bags had been kept. He gave a time. He gave a description of a man who looked like he did not belong in a warehouse. Detective Price listened and felt the floor move beneath her. She knew that if Joe was telling the truth, then they were a step closer to Marcus. She ordered a search of the warehouse. Officers went at sunrise with warrants and boots. They found boxes and tools and a floor with scuff marks. Under a false panel, they found a small tin with a label. Inside were a few loose diamonds and a scrap of fabric. The fabric had a stain the lab would take time to test. The detectives found a receipt for a suit rental and a name crossed out in a ledger. One more step. But even with this, Marcus remained a ghost. He moved like vapor through accounts and through other people's mouths. He kept his name off phones. He sent money through strangers. The detectives tried to pull the thread, and sometimes the thread pulled back and left a knot. At this point, the men who were held in jail began to fear more than the judge. They feared what other prisoners might do when they learned about the jewels. In the quiet hours of the cell block, a rumor started. Marcus has a list. He will cut anyone who talks. Fear rippled through the bunk beds like wine through dry grass. Men who had been brave in the daylight huddled at night and put their heads down. Then, suddenly, in the middle of this quiet, something extreme happened. Something that would send the case into a new orbit. One rainy night, as thunder rolled like a drum above the city, there was a fight in the jail yard. It started small, a shove, a trash can tipped, and then it grew fast. A prisoner slammed another into the chain-link fence. Guards rushed in with batons and shields. People screamed. In the chaos, a bag fell from a man's shoulder and spilled bright things across the concrete. Diamonds flashed in the streetlights like small stars. The guards tried to pick up the jewels and hold order, but in the scramble, a lone figure slipped through a gap in the fence. He ran into the rain with the stolen gems heavy in his coat pocket. Someone shouted, and boots chased him. The prisoner reached a wall and climbed like a desperate bird. He jumped and landed hard on the other side, disappearing into the dark, wet alley. Detective Price watched the footage the next day and felt a new cold settle into her chest. The man who escaped in the rain was not one of the big-name suspects. He was a small-time thief who had worked for the robbers. He had nothing to lose and thought the diamonds could be his ticket out. But if he ran, he would pull a loose thread that could unravel the case, or lead the police to Marcus Hale. That runaway had vanished into the night, but he left prints, a broken pattern the detectives could follow. A witness in a bar 2 blocks away said he had seen a man matching the description. The witness remembered the color of the coat and the way the man limped. It was not much, but it was something. The escape into the rain was the extreme event that closed this chapter. It moved the story from a neat robbery into a messy chase. Now the police would follow the trail into neighborhoods where people kept secrets and into hotels with tired carpets. The prisoners who remained would whisper about the running man and whether his escape would mean freedom or a different kind of trouble. Detective Price leaned back in her chair and stared at the board full of pins. One pin was backlit by the desk lamp, making it glow like a small, stubborn star. She tapped it with her fingertip and said aloud, not to anyone but to the empty room, "We are not done." Outside, the city kept the memory of the heist in its news cycles. Inside the jail, men counted the days. The glitter of diamonds still shone in the dark, and the missing man had carried with him the chance that everything would change. The hunt for Marcus Hale would grow sharper, but for now one thing was sure. The heist had gone wrong, and the prison aftermath had begun. The next chapter of this story would pick up where the rain left off, following the escaped man into the night and the detectives as they hunt for the truth. When you are ready, we will continue.